confirmation of a quorum.
We do have a quorum, and the press has been notified.
Okay. The next order of business is swearing in of new private board members.
So, there are new private board members who have been appointed to the board, and the Kentucky law requires that they be sworn in. So Carrie, as a notary public, is authorized to do that, and will administer the oath, and at the end, you'll just affirm the oath.
As a renewal, do I?
I don't believe you need to do
Okay.
it as a written
Okay.
appointment.
All right, if you will please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as I continue a citizen thereof, and that I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability the office of board member of Kentucky Housing Corporation according to law. And I do further solemnly swear or affirm that since the adoption of the present Constitution, I, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state, nor out of it, nor have I sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have I acted as second in carrying the challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you.
I know you did.
All right, welcome,
No.
welcome aboard.
Yes,
I had to think about it, I had to think about it.
Okay, we've got a live one over here, don't we?
Yes, yes, we do.
Okay, great. All right then, next is the approval of minutes from our meeting held on December 12th. The minutes are in your packet. We will need a motion on that for approval. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? All right, then, looks like that motion carried. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of Public Housing Agency Annual Plan for Rental Assistance Program. And it looks like Marty, I'm gonna butcher this, Manus, thank you, Chilco.
Yes, thank you
Marty.
so much.
Thank you, Marty.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. So I just want to thank Winston, Wendy, board members, Vice Chair Johnson, for the opportunity to present the Tenant Assistance Program's Public Housing Authority Annual and 5-Year Plan. Today I'll be requesting signatures for documents associated with the annual and 5-year plan for submission to the Housing and Urban Development. Kentucky Housing is required by federal regulations to submit a Public Housing Agency annual plan and 5-year plan for rental assistance programs to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Federal regulations require that Kentucky Housing Corporation describe programs, operations, strategies for meeting our local housing needs. The first item that I'm going to discuss is A1, the number of housing choice vouchers in Kentucky Housing Corporation's Housing Choice Voucher Portfolio. This number includes new vouchers as well as past vouchers that we received in the past years. Kentucky Housing Corporation has a portfolio of 6,221 vouchers, and we have obtained 25 housing stability vouchers that came online in December of 2023. This funding opportunity is designed to encourage a community-wide commitment to the goal of ending homelessness. Our stability vouchers assist the following households: homeless as defined in Section 103A of the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, those that are at risk of homelessness, those that are fleeing, attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking, and veterans and families that include a veteran family member that meet one of the preceding criteria. KHC is partnering with the Housing Contract Administration Department here within KHC to obtain referrals from the coordinated entry to house the housing stability vouchers. The next item, B2, of new activities. As you all may or may not know, that we have had a lot happen within the HCD program in the last week that impacts our PBV funding. Wendy has asked that I give her a moment to share our recent news, so Wendy, if you would come and do so, please.
Sure, and I'm doing this because it's complicated and Marty I get the one who gets to deliver bad news.
Thanks, Wendy.
What I want you all to know about this public housing plan is we have to do this every year, and if we make changes, it has to come to the board. When we make significant changes, we have to do a public comment period, we have to do a public hearing, all that kind of stuff. We have done all of that. What I want to share with you is that part of it is already outdated and will probably need to be changed at some point, but because we need to get all of it approved and underway, we would like to go ahead and approve it as is. Here's the item that we know is going to change. We have outlined in the document that we intended to enter into several project-based voucher housing assistance payment contracts. What that means is you can take a portion of your vouchers that usually can move around and lock them down to a rental property so that the units remain affordable and that property can serve typically really low income folks. Our focus has largely been housing people who've been homeless. So they're earning 30% of area median income or less. You cannot make a rental property financially stable without rent assistance or something to offset their inability to pay much in rent. So we had this grand plan. However, we learned on Monday in a meeting with HUD that our voucher program has been referred to what they call a HAP shortfall prevention team, meaning we are at risk to not have enough money in 2025 even for our current vouchers. And they have, forbid is too strong a word, but they have told us we are not to enter into any project-based voucher contracts because they do not think we're going to be able to keep them up. There are three main reasons this has happened. It's a perfect storm in a way. A lot of what HUD does is a year or so behind. They use old numbers for projecting, and then they do this reconciliation and kind of catch up. So the two things that happened in the past years are they've swept a lot of reserves because, number two, per unit costs are going way up. So Marty said we have 6,500, but we're really not housing that many folks because our per unit cost, it was like $430 2 years ago, and the projection for this year is that it'll be like $710, $720, just because contract rents rents have just gone up so much. So we're housing fewer people with the same amount of money. They swept our reserves because they wanted to help other PHAs that are running out of money. So now we don't even have 1 month's worth of rent in reserve. So we're running really thin. In addition, the two proposed budgets at the federal level in the House and the Senate proposed to cut the program between 3 and 13%. We usually are funded at least 99% every year. And through continuing resolutions, it's always been at least 99%. So these things taken together has made HUD tell us you can't enter into project-based vouchers. So we don't want to have to go through all of the processes to change that right now. We felt like we wanted to be honest with you all. We have that outlined in the plan, and we are not going to be doing that. We spent a lot of this week, and last week I got to talk to developers to let them know that a project they have underway will not be getting project-based rent assistance. I can tell you we're doing some really creative stuff with the dollars we have to figure out if we can fund capitalized operating reserves that would help make up for the shortfall of those units over time. So we're trying to problem solve with them and be really flexible, but it hasn't been good for the developers. They're not happy about it. It's really tough for them. Yeah.
So we're just leaving it in the plan, but we're not committed to do it.
Yeah, the plan
and
doesn't.
It won't harm.
Yeah, exactly.
The HUD won't look at it and say, oh,
No.
they kept that in
In fact,
there.
we brought this up this week
Yeah.
with HUD to say, we're about to take our plan to the board and you just told us this. They said, just leave it in. It doesn't commit us to doing
Right.
it. Yeah.
And then the thing I want to know is, will we have to actually yank anybody out of the program, or we just won't put people on as they?
We have stopped issuing new vouchers.
Yeah.
Like usually, there's always some churn, and so we pull people off the waiting list and give them a voucher, and we are not doing that right now. And we are also kind of stopping some other things that will help us preserve some of our funding. Our hope would be not to kick anyone off. That is our aim. And to keep our current project-based voucher commitments. That is what we're focused on. I just didn't feel like making Marty try to explain all of that to you all. Thanks, Marty.
Thanks, Wendy. So you may see the presentation on the board, so some of the items that are on there, I'm going to skip over because they have to do with the project-based vouchers. So I'm just gonna, Wendy kinda gave that spiel, so we're gonna kinda skip over those items. So in section B3, information listed in the progress report, we had that KHC was awarded 25 housing stability vouchers, that KHC has made voucher offers to more than 2,700 waiting list applicants and increased overall program utilization. Those were the vouchers that we issued prior to stopping, as Wendy mentioned. KHC continues to promote landlord engagement on its website, webinars, and egram to promote landlord participation for regular housing choice voucher and our special purpose vouchers, such as VASH, our family unification programs. KHC's focus has been on increased utilization and special purpose vouchers and implementation of new federal guidelines through the Housing Opportunity through Modernization Act of 2016. In section D1, our fair housing goal, Kentucky Housing Corporation's tenant-based rental assistance program documentation is available in Spanish, and KHC language access plan helps to ensure access to KHC programs and services for persons with limited English proficiency. KHC also provides fair housing educational information and materials directly to landlords in tenant-based rental assistance. The tenant-based rental assistance and project-based rental assistance programs ensure affordable housing throughout Kentucky to members of protected classes without discrimination. KHC provides training to all employees, including those performing PHA functions on fair housing issues. Corporately, KHC engages in fair housing outreach across Kentucky, including collaboration with Kentucky Commission on Human Rights and Lexington Fair Housing Council. So that is the information for our annual plan, and then I will go to our 5-year plan. A lot of this is the same information that I just went over. Section B1 is Kentucky Housing Corporation's mission. I'm sure that everyone in this room, as well as all KHC staff, are aware of Kentucky Housing's mission. B2, our goals and objectives. KHC will work to improve overall program efficiencies. KHC will continue to improve the quality of assisted housing through improved voucher management. KHC will work to expand the supply of assisted housing. KHC will apply for additional vouchers as offered by HUD and will continue to maximize the number of HCV units administered by KHC. KHC will continue to increase housing choices by the following activities: providing voucher mobility counseling. KHC encourages mobility to increase housing choices and satisfaction for all participating families. This service is provided through briefing sessions with families prior to initial program participation. Increasing voucher payment standards. KHC utilizes 110% of the fair market rents. For certain counties, KHC will use 110% of the small area fair market rents in order to give families an opportunity to access better housing across the Commonwealth. KHC will continue to promote self-sufficiency and asset development of assisted households through our Family Self-Sufficiency Program. Participating families will receive housing assistance, case management, supportive services to enable them to become gainfully employed and independent of public housing assistance within 5 years. KHC has been focusing on increased utilization through our special purpose vouchers and implementation again of our HOTMA. KHC continues to promote our landlord engagement, again via our website, webinars, egrams to promote landlord participation. Section B3 is our progress report. As I said before, our baseline is at 6,221 as compared to 5,967 at time KHC submitted its last 5-year plan. Over the past 5 years, KHC has been allocated an additional 417 units. KHC has realized growth through the following programs. Again, we've made offers to 2,700 participants through our waiting list. We received 257 emergency housing vouchers. And we're also partnering with, again, our Kentucky Balance of State Continuum of Care to serve those folks in our emergency housing voucher program. The housing stability vouchers, as I said before, we have the 25 vouchers that we received in December of 2013. Mainstream, we were awarded 135 additional vouchers. And then there's some PDD language in there, I'm just gonna skip over that. KHC may also select units without a competitive selection process in certain circumstances described in 24 CFR 983.51C, and its Federal Register notice dated August 13th of 2024, and that is when funding is available. KHC may select a project that underwent an eligibility event within 5 years of the project selection date in which a family or families qualify for enhanced voucher assistance and provided informed consent to relinquish its enhanced voucher for PBV assistance, again, when funding is available. KHC may select one or more PBV projects with units made exclusively available to VASH if the site is on VA facility grounds. Section B4 is the Violence Against Women's Act. I'll save you all from me reading all this. This is just, KHC's position on our VAWA. We do, in our department, have an emergency transfer process that we follow to the letter. We have used that frequently, and so we, make sure that those folks are protected. Section D1 is our fair housing goal. KHC's tenant-based rental assistance program documentation is available in Spanish. I went through that in the annual plan. I'll save you all from going through that again as well. And that is all I have. Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
So it looks like we have to approve this.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
For both the 1 year and the 5-year plan, I second.
Okay.
I
So we
assume
have a
the motion
motion
was
for
for both.
We have a motion for both the 1 year and the 5 year. And we have a second for
The 1 year and 5
the
year.
1 year and 5 year. Do we have any discussion? Okay.
I'll just say, I'm glad that you kept some of the project based in the 5 year, because you never know.
Yeah, yes, and Wendy can attest to that. We had that conversation this morning, so that's our hope.
And I'm sure our banker can explain that if you walk in to finance something and you have a contract that guarantees payment on certain units, that's helpful towards getting your loan. So that's why we do try to do some project-based to help create new housing. So, I'm sorry,
No, absolutely not.
yeah, I like that you keep it in there.
We appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
We need a vote.
We need a vote, yes. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next item on the agenda, inducement resolution for Meadows at McNeely Lake. It's Terry Hilton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, new board members. I'm Terry Hilton. I'm the managing director for our multifamily programs. So I have some inducements for you today. I actually will have 4 inducements to provide to you all. As you all know, Kentucky Housing Corporation provides conduit financing for the development of multifamily housing programs. Under this program, the Taxes and Bonding Authority, controlled by KHC, is provided to a developer, enabling a multifamily project to be financed on a tax-exempt borrowing basis, and in combination with the 4% low-income housing tax credit, which provides project equity. Under this program, KHC is the issuer of the bonds in name only. The bonds are not a liability of KHC, and the project is on a corporate asset. In this way, KHC is removed from the risk associated with the multifamily financing while achieving the objective of affordable housing development. The first item for inducement today is the Meadows at McNeely Lake. This is a project requesting bonding authority in an amount not to exceed $40,500,000. This project involves new construction of 264 units. It's located on Cooper Chapel Road in Louisville. They will serve 107 households at or below 30% area median income, 157 households at or below 80% area median income, and the 264 units will consist of 60 one-bedroom units and 120 two-bedroom units and 84 three-bedroom units. Your development team is listed in your packet and on the screen. As the financing for the project progresses, the board of directors must also authorize the issuance and the sale of the taxes and bonds through the approval of a separate resolution. KHC staff has reviewed the preliminary submittals of the applicant and recommends approval by the board of directors. for an inducement authorizing the tax exempt bond financing of Meadows at McNeely Lake.
Do we have a motion for approval of this?
So moved.
Resolution. Okay, so Kathy moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Matt. Any discussion?
Just, I'll say to Sam, I can't recall, I think out of abundance of caution, I'll abstain from this vote. When I was at Dinsmore, I might have worked on this matter in the past, so I'll just abstain.
Okay.
Okay, so Will is going to abstain. So with that, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, like? Okay. Resolution passes. Terry?
All right, the next project is Motorworks Apartments. It is requesting a bonding authority in the amount not to exceed $47 million. This is a new construction of 319 units located in West Broadway, Louisville. The project will serve 135 households at or below 30% area median income, 184 households at or below 80%. 319 units will consist of 121 bedroom units, 100 two-bedroom units, and 99 three-bedroom units. Your development team is as follows. And again, as financing for the project progressive, the board of directors must also authorize the issuance and sale of the taxes and bonds through approval of a separate resolution. Staff has reviewed the preliminary submittals of the applicant and recommends approval by the board of directors for an inducement resolution authorizing the taxes and bond financing of Motorworks Apartment.
I'll just say, if you don't know Louisville, the two are really far apart. And on Broadway is great for health services and public transit. But, so we're not clustering is what I'm saying.
Seeking a motion for the resolution for Motorworks Apartments.
Motion approved.
Matt will make the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Will. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Resolution passes. Terry, you are still on.
I think it's like the Terry and Tracy show. Yeah. Okay, so our next one is Park Hill of Blanken Acres. They are requesting a bonding authority not to exceed an odd amount, $43,498,122. They were originally induced in October of 2023 for bonding authority not in the amount of $31,184,279. This is an additional amount of $12,313,843. This request is due to the increase in construction cost and energy efficiency initiatives. It is 233 units located at on 11th Street in Louisville. This is on the old Rodeo chemical plant site. They will serve 40 households at or below 30% area median income, 37 households at 50%, 45 at 60%, and 111 households at or below 70%. The 233 units consist of 81 bedroom units, 105 two-bedroom units, and 48 three-bedroom units. Your development team is listed here. And again, as the financing for the project progresses, the board of directors must also authorize the issuance and the sale of the taxes and bonds through approval of a separate resolution. KHC staff has reviewed the preliminary submittals of the applicant and recommends approval by the board of directors of an inducement resolution authorizing the tax exempt financing of Park Hill of Blanken Acres.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Will made the motion and.
Second.
Second by William.
I'm not sure if you may say I don't need to recuse myself. These guys called me in to just explain what they wanted to do a couple of years ago. I was never hired by them. I never gave them any advice, but, you know, they fully briefed me. Do I need to?
No, I don't think you need
Okay.
to, just for having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Continue, Terry.
All right, right, this is the final resolution for Echo Trail Apartments. This project was granted an inducement resolution on August 29, 2024 for a bond authority in the amount of $37.5 million. This final resolution is for $37.5 million. This project received a Tax Equity and Financial Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, hearing on December 10th, 2024, and again on February 7th of 2025. This project has been presented to the State Property and Building Commission, as well as the Capital Projects and Bond Oversight Committee of the Legislature. This project involves a new construction of 256 units serving families on Echo Trail Lane in Bowling Green. They will serve 4 households at or below 50% area median income, 248 households at or below 60%, 4 households at or below 70%. This project consists of 48 one-bedroom units, 80 two-bedroom units, and 128 three-bedroom units. KHC staff recommends approval by the Board of Directors of this final resolution for the issuance of bonds in the Echo Trail Apartments project.
Do you have a motion? Matt makes a motion. Second. Second by Kathy. Do you have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Carrie?
And last, this is a bond resolution amendment for 33 Newtown Apartments located in Lexington. They were granted an inducement resolution in October of 2020 for the bond authority in the amount of $25 million. The final resolution was approved for $24 million at the December 10th, 2020 board meeting. They actually closed on August 12th of 2021. On February 29th of 2024, the board approved an amendment to the bond financing agreement to extend the commencement of the amortization. The developer has requested a second amendment to the bond financing agreement to extend the amortization commencement date and the outside conversion date, as well as to adjust the permanent loan interest rate to a SOFR, secured overnight financing rate. All parties agree. However, KHC must also concur by adopting this resolution. This resolution authorizes the second amendment to the bond financing agreement by and among the issuer KHC, the borrower, the initial bondholder, and the bondholder. The Issuer's Council has reviewed and signed off on the final documents, and KHC staff recommends approval by the Board of Directors of the second amendment to the bond financing agreement for 33 Newtown Apartments.
So moved.
Wayne makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Will. Do you have any discussion?
Can I just ask, is this fairly common to these delays, because things don't go as fast as?
I don't know if it's fairly common, but it is common that it has happened.
Okay.
And I know this secured overnight financing rate is a little bit better rate, I believe. It's less.
So I think the old rate, interest rate is sunsetted,
Mhm.
or is sunsetting.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Terry, would you entertain a couple general questions?
I will try.
When we do these, is KHC underwriting the debt independently of?
Yes.
Okay, first question. And then management company, what's the role of the management company?
Whenever they are placed in service, they'll be the ones who are kind of in charge of the leasing up the households or the tenants to that particular project.
I had somebody ask me the other day when they heard I was going on the board, they were inquiring about KHC's practices with respect to, if I understood correctly, requiring third-party contract, what's the term I'm looking for, to oversee the contracting, the contractor.
Like the general contractor to building the?
Yeah, but what do you call them, having a senior moment here? When you've got a general contractor and you've got another.
Management firm.
A management firm overseeing the construction project? No?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right, well, I'll take it offline. That's fine.
Do you have any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. Next on your agenda, we have the presentation of second quarter updates on fiscal year 25. And it is Kendrick Vonderschmidt.
Good afternoon. My name is Kendrick Vonderschmidt. I'm the Managing Director of Corporate Planning and Accountability. I've got 3 short informational items. This will not require a vote or a resolution. Our first informational item is just a reminder of our 2025 overarching strategies. This is a document we create every year to guide our planning process at about this time of the year every year. These overarching strategies are 1, to address Kentucky's most urgent housing needs, 2, to mitigate financial risks, and 3, to sustain and advance core competencies. We like to use all 3 of these overarching strategies as we plan for the coming year and have that guide our decision making in the coming months. Right, next, I have a short collection of indicators, key accomplishments through the second quarter. I'll go through several departments and discuss the various accomplishments. These come from our corporate scorecards, which are collected quarterly from our staff. Our loan servicing department has an average loan count of 855 loans per employee. That's on a goal of 700 loans per employee. Our single family department has $287 million in loan production through quarter 2. Our tenant assistant program department has $443,000 in revenue from our inspection fee program. Our housing contract administration department is proud to say that we are serving over 5,300 households with our homelessness programs right now. Our multifamily programs department have awarded 554 units worth of taxes and bond projects through Q2 so far this year. Our human resources department is proud to report that our employee turnover rate is 2.76%, and that is on a goal of keeping that below 5%. So we're well on our goal there. Our information technology department has a system uptime for all of its systems of 99% or greater on everything that we do track. That is consistent with their goals. Our business logistics department that keeps track of the building here is proud to say that they have resealed and restriped the pavement outside and replaced the west wing roof. And there's still an ongoing LED lighting project that should finish up shortly. Finally, my department, corporate planning and accountability, it reports that 53% of available admin fees have been collected year to date. And that's all of the grants that we have available. We've collected 53% of the available admin revenue. And at 50% of the way through the year, that's exactly where we want to be. All right, the third and final item for today is a quick timeline. You'll see me again in May. Right now, at this time of year, between February and April, we prepare the operating budget, the overarching strategies, the scorecards, and finally the allocation plan. In May, we will present the overarching strategies and the allocation plan to the committee that formerly was the Joint Policy and Program and Communication Planning Committee. And we also, Tracy will present the operating budget to the Finance Committee. Then finally, on May 29th, we'll present the allocation plan and the operating budget to the Board of Directors in whole. And that is when you'll see me next. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. Once again, trying to get familiar with the second slide, the key accomplishments. Would it be appropriate, where appropriate, to include what the goal was? So we could not commit to memory what?
I can provide that for the board and with the goal as well.
And I guess it's a question for Sam. If this thing about you have to work in the office, you can't, will it affect KHC? I don't think you're a government employee, or are you a government employee?
Are you talking about Senate Bill 79?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our analysis has concluded that that bill would not apply to KHC. We're an independent de jure municipal corporation and political subdivision. the board of directors has authority over, you know, the hiring and firing of staff and, you know, all HR policies, which is delegated to our HR department. And there is a case from, I think it was 2004, where someone sued KHC, and it was an administrative case with the personnel board. And the personnel board determined that they did not have jurisdiction over KHC as an independent agency. So all of those indicators lead us to believe that this bill would not apply to KHC.
And what about DEI? You know, would it apply to KHC, this anti-equity movement?
Depend on the language of the legislation in all likelihood, and I'm not aware of any pending that is currently applied.
I'm sorry, I thought there was, my bad.
Pardon?
I'm sorry, I thought there was, and my bad, and we get federal funds, so I thought, well, with
No,
federal.
I thought you were talking in terms of state context.
I was talking in terms of both, because we get federal money and also, but then a whole portion of us doesn't get federal money, and whether there was something in the state. So, to be determined, huh?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm not speaking for housing, but there are a lot of federal, I mean, there are a lot of lawsuits that are winding their way through, I believe, on that. And we just don't know how that's all gonna end up for anyone who receives federal funds.
Okay.
So,
We haven't received any guidance from HUD or from any of the agencies that we receive funding from on that yet, so.
So we're still allowed to say fair housing because it's a law? Okay.
They're definitely firing people from HUD. I know that from our department.
I don't know of any federal agency that's not suffered.
No,
So,
but our disaster recovery office is gonna go down 85%, that's what I was told.
Really? Disaster recovery?
So contractual language will change, and then
How will we recover from that disaster? Sorry.
Again, these are informational items. Thanks to the board for their time.
all right. Thank you very much, Peter. Next item on the agenda, report of action and recommendations of Finance Committee meeting held February 21st, 2025. Tracy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the board. Barry Nossinger is the chair of the Finance Committee, and he is not able to attend today, so he has delegated the reporting responsibilities to me. So I'm going to report out about the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee and the Board of Directors of Kentucky Housing Corporation met virtually on February 21st at 10 a.m. last Friday. I presented the financial update for the corporation as of December 31st, 2024. Highlighted throughout the financial update was the impact of returning to issuing mortgage revenue bonds, the mechanism to finance mortgages, resulting in both in our corporate assets and liabilities. I will also provide a similar update to the board, a more condensed financial update here after this report. I also presented a report on secondary market trading gains. Results for the first half of fiscal year 2025, showing that net trading gains resulted in over $2 million in trading gains, and that is on $147 million in production. So that's pretty much on par with the last couple of years. Not like we saw years prior, but not too much less, not too much more. The corporation, sorry, I lost my spot. Pricing difficulties and volatility of the market over the last few years is the reason why we've added back mortgage revenue bonds as a way to finance mortgages. So we're running dual programs, and that has been going pretty well so far. With this, the corporation financed a little over $150 million with mortgage revenue bonds 6 months into the year, with a total production on just under $300 million. I then presented a summary schedule on the single-family portfolio, reflecting a $266 million increase in overall principal balances from fiscal 24 to fiscal 25, which resulted in a $3.4 billion servicing portfolio December 31. This is mainly the result of being able to add the MRBs and relatively low payoffs in the existing portfolio.
Can you give me the letter and the page?
just a report out, it's a summary of finance committee, I'm sorry. I'm trying to use my best Barry voice, but it's not coming through. I also presented a schedule on loan delinquencies, noting an overall delinquency ratio of 5.41% at December 31st, which was predominantly 30-day delinquent loans. This is somewhat typical for December. As a note, the delinquency ratio improved at January 31st to 3.94%. I also advised that the foreclosure rate increased slightly to 8.89%, so less than 1%, which we will continue to monitor. And then finally, I advised the committee that although the secondary market mortgage program, where we do our secondary market trading gains, continue to generate some profit, management has determined that issuing single-family mortgage revenue bonds will provide additional funding and stability for our mortgage financing operations. There's an agenda item I'll present here shortly relating to an authorization to issue single-family bonds in 2025. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report. There's no board action required.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Next item, of course, is presentation of the Kentucky Housing Corporation financial update as of December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. As usual, we have a handful of schedules we're going to walk through. I'm only going to point out a few things since we went in pretty good detail during Finance Committee last week. For the most part, we had two nice profitable quarters. We'll start with our pro forma statement of that position, which is our balance sheet. Starting with line A, consistent story over the past year. Total assets increased as a result of issuing mortgage revenue bonds to finance our mortgage activity. Total program purpose assets increased by $120 million from June to December, which was offset by a $70 million decrease in cash in line B. What this shows is at June 30th, we had more cash in the form of bond proceeds in the indenture, and then that cash was used in the first and second quarter to purchase mortgage-backed securities, which you'll see the increase in line A. We also had a nice profit the first two quarters, which was used to warehouse an additional about $10 million in loans at 12/31, rather than having to borrow to warehouse those loans. And then looking down at our liabilities, line E and F, revenue bonds and interest payable increased slightly. This reflects a small bond issuance we had in November of about $50 million. Going down to line L, this reflects the mark-to-market in our securities. The market value of our securities improved from June 30 to December 31st by about $5.8 million, mostly due to market conditions. We've seen this throughout the year. And line M, overall net position at 6 months improved slightly to by $15 million to $485 million, mostly as a result of the number of loans held in the warehouse at December 31st and the mark-to-market of our securities. Does anybody have any questions on the balance sheet? Moving on to the income statement at quarter end. Just going to hit three highlights here. Line G, total revenues increased by about $1.5 million since December 31st of last year. This is a result of a slight increase in the net interest income, an increase in fees, specifically our servicing fee income, which you'll see on a future schedule, and the mark-to-market, offset by a slight decrease in gains and sales on loans. Dropping down to line M, our total liabilities decreased by $2.4 million since December last year. This is a result of some lower G&A expenses, and particularly those offset by some higher admin fees, which you'll also see a future schedule. In addition to a reduction in our provision on loan losses, mostly for our multifamily portfolio, we saw some larger loans pay off, which resulted in us reducing our provision for losses, and reduction in lender comp expense, as we've had a slightly lower loan production this year versus last year at this time. And then going down to line P, change in net position, so our net income for the quarter is $15 million, a $4 million increase over this year, last time. Any questions on our income statement? All right, we'll move on to cash flows. I won't go into too much detail here. This just shows the inflows and outflows of cash for the 6 months of the fiscal year. Line A reflects loan fundings and conversion to MBSs. That's our operating activities. Line B is borrowing on our lines of credit to finance the loans, considered non-capital financing activities. And then going down to line D, that's our purchasing of MBSs into the indenture, selling to the secondary market. So that's just the inflows and outflows of cash. I'd like to highlight lines H, I, and J. These are our single-family metrics, and as you can see, our production numbers are slightly under where they were last year at this time. We put out the new MRB program in July 2023, and that took off pretty well. We still have great production numbers for the year, but we're not going to have the record year like we did last year. Or we're not projecting to quite yet. Any questions on that schedule? All right, the next two schedules are related to the operating budget. I'll highlight a few things here. This is our operating fee income, budget versus actual. Line C and D are homeless programs or weatherization programs. These are unfavorable to budget by $166,000 and $400,000 respectively. These are grant-funded programs, so where there's not expenditures, there's not associated fee income. So you'll see on the next slide a reduction in expenditures that account for that. Going on to line F, temporary COVID program funds. This is favorable to budget by about $120,000. This is mainly our HHRF program, and we've been able to deploy the remaining funds to housing connectors to help folks find housing who have vouchers in hand. And it's been pretty successful. Unfortunately, we will have all these funds exhausted sometime this year. Going down to line H, loan servicing. This fee income is $1.5 million favorable to budget. We were pretty conservative when we estimated last year at this time with our budget, not knowing where interest rates would go or delinquency rates would go. So we will continue this favorable variance throughout the year and make a pretty good profit on our servicing fee income for fiscal '25. Going down to line I, rental production. This shows a $407,000 unfavorable to budget. This variance is mostly due to the timing of projects closing. We will assume this will level out throughout the year as long as any federal funding issues don't get in the way of or prevent a project from closing. And then line Q, overall, we are $1.9 million favorable to budget for the first 6 months with a nice surplus of $4.6 million. Yes?
I wanted to know more about the weatherization. We're halfway through the year and mostly through the winter. Will that pick up, or is it deliberately being a little, so that we have money? Or
It's my understanding some of that is some vacancies in that area that I think we have finally filled. But that has slowed down both the payroll expense and some of the planned activities for weatherization.
And I'm sure per house cost has gone up from what you first anticipated.
I can't speak to that specifically. That's more of our subrecipient costs, I believe. This is strictly just what it costs for us to run those programs here via the operating budget. All right, one more schedule on the operating budget here. This is our operating expenditures budget versus actual for the quarter end. I'm just going to highlight a couple here, starting with lines A and B, salary and benefits. This is $750,000 favorable to budget. This is partly an accounting thing. There was accrual at the end of the fiscal year, reversal of that accrual, and then not another accrual done. That will be corrected in quarter 3. Additionally, there's some vacancies within those line items. Going down to line G, foreclosure costs and release fees. We're favorable to budget by $240,000. We're slightly under budget on court costs and attorney's fees this year. We also book a foreclosure claims accrual that has been less than what was budgeted for. And then just in general, the foreclosure moratorium over COVID has made budgeting a little bit difficult. I feel like fiscal '25 is probably the first normal year we've had to be able to really pinpoint what the correct foreclosure budgeting cost should be. So we'll likely base this next operating budget off of fiscal '25. Line H, occupancy expenses is favorable to budget by $130,000. This consists of some capital improvements in our facility that won't take place, won't be invoiced for until this third quarter. And then going to the bottom, line CC, if I can read my writing. Overall, we're favorable to budget in our expenditures by $1.4 million. So all in all, I think we're in pretty good shape. Staff are managing their budgets real well. Continue generating profit from our mortgage production, our servicing activities, some of our programmatic areas. No surprises. I anticipate the remainder of the year to look pretty much the same as long as none of the federal ongoing impacts our operations here. And there's no, that is just a report, no action needed.
Thank you, Tracy. The next item is yours as well, issuance of 2025 housing revenue bonds.
Thank you. I'm going to read through the agenda item a little bit here. On July 27th, 2023, the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors, in response to changing housing market financing conditions, approved a new general indenture of trust, provide flexible financing for insured mortgage loans for persons and families of lower and moderate income through the issuance of mortgage revenue bonds. Pursuant to the general indenture, the corporation may issue bonds from time to time in one or more series of indentures to obtain funds to carry out the homeownership program. KHC staff is seeking approval to issue an amount not to exceed $400 million in mortgage revenue bonds, known as the 2025 bonds, to finance low to moderate income mortgage loans from time to time in one or more series on or before March 1st, 2026. Management requests authority to develop a financing plan as specified in the resolution, allow staff to issue, sell, and deliver said bonds with provision that the maximum interest rate of any bond not exceed 8%, that no bonds are priced lower than 3% discount nor a premium greater than 15%, and the final maturity does not exceed 40 years from the delivery date of the bonds. The authorization to issue one or more series over the next year will provide staff and external members of the financing team greater flexibility in managing the mortgage pipeline and better opportunities to capitalize on favorable market conditions in the bond market. Last year at this time, the board authorized a similar issuance of $400 million. We issued $300 million since that time. $265 million of that was tax exempt. $135 million was taxable. This will require, upon approval of this, we will have to go through state property, SPBC, Capital Projects Bond Oversight Committee for the approval of this as well. But this essentially gives us some flexibility of when to price and go to market with our bonds throughout the year. And staff recommends approval.
So moved.
William makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Matt seconds. Do we have discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. I may need help with some of these names here. All right, next on the agenda, authorization to renew personal service contracts with Steerley and Reddick PLLC and Septimus Taylor PSC for legal services for the corporation's loan servicing department.
Thank you. We request authorization in personal service contracts with Sterling Reddick PLLC and Septimus Taylor PSC for fiscal year 2026 for legal representation in foreclosure and bankruptcy proceedings for Kentucky Housing Corporation. Following request for proposal process in 2024, we received 3 responses. We selected 2 firms for legal representation in foreclosure and bankruptcy proceedings. We have the option to renew the contracts for 2 consecutive years. and this would be the first renewal of those contracts. Staff recommends approval of a resolution authorizing the corporation to renew personal service contracts with Sterling Reddick in an amount not to exceed $1.2 million, and Septimus Taylor in an amount not to exceed $750,000 for fiscal '26. A majority of these funds expended for loan servicing legal representation are reimbursable to KHC by the insurance agencies.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kathy, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Matt, any discussion? I do have a question, so this is two-year renewals
So it's a 3-year contract.
with
with-
two-year
Yeah,
renewals?
so this is the first of 2.
And this is your first 2-year renewal, and at the end of this 2 years, you will have the option for another
Correct.
2-year.
I think it's a one-year contract.
1-year
Oh,
contract?
my bad. 1-year contract with an option of 2 renewals.
Two one-year renewals.
2 1-year renewals.
Yes.
I'm
not confusing at all.
Could I have made that more confusing? 1-year contract, 2 1-year renewals, total contract eligibility for 3 years.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Before you have to
That's-
bid it again.
Correct.
Okay.
How do you all evaluate their performance?
Well, I mean, we've worked with these two groups for quite a long time. One handles all our, Sterling Reddick handles both foreclosures and bankruptcies. Septimus just does foreclosures. So far, we've had no issues. They're very responsive. They handle everything, pretty well for us. I guess we've not gotten into any trouble, so that's helpful. But, I think we've had a long-standing relationship with these two firms.
And what percent do we collect through that process? Like, when it's all done, part of the settlement is you paying our legal fees?
So, when we do go through a claims process with HUD, and we get to the point that it is facing foreclosure and we want to convey the property and submit a claim to get our funds back, we get 75% of the attorney's fees back. So a servicing cost to us is 25% of those fees.
And so obviously their fee structure is acceptable to HUD.
Yeah, so actually all of the agencies, I think most of them follow, I think it's Freddie, but they have a maximum amount charged per state that any attorneys or bankruptcy attorneys are allowed to charge. And it's published by all those, the insurance agencies.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then it passes, thank you. All right, Tracy, you also have another contract you're going to present. Authorization to renew personal service contracts with Kentuckiana Property Preservations LLC, Paid to Buy Realty LLC, and Wolverine Real Estate Services Incorporated to provide property preservation services for Kentucky Housing Corporation's Loan Servicing Department.
Thank you. Pursuant to the terms of FHA, rural housing, VA, and Fannie Mae, KHC is required to perform certain property preservation and/or inspection services on single-family loans when a property is vacant, delinquent, or in foreclosure. Securing contracts with these property preservation companies will allow KHC's servicing department to respond quickly to reports of vacant properties, maintain proper inspection, lawn maintenance, and winterization schedules, and order necessary repairs to properties, thereby preserving the value of the property and protecting the interests of the corporation. KHC is reimbursed through the insurer claims process for the majority of funds paid to property preservation companies. Following request for proposal in 2024, KHC had 3 responses and selected Kentuckiana Property Preservation, Paid to Buy Realty, and Wolverine Real Estate Services. Like the last agenda item, KHC has the option to renew the personal service contract for 2 consecutive years following the initial terms, and this is the first renewal of those contracts. Staff recommends approval to renew the contracts with Kentuckiana Property Preservation in an amount not to exceed $800,000, Paid to Buy Realty in an amount not to exceed $250,000, and Wolverine Real Estate Services in an amount not to exceed $800,000 for fiscal year 2026.
How are the,
Hold on. Can we get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
second,
Now discuss.
so how were the amounts determined for the contracts?
I think it's based on historical costs and where they're located.
Okay.
So
Not
the
like
state is kind of
services,
split
okay.
up. The one with a higher contract is most likely where we have the majority
More
of
density?
properties, yeah.
Okay.
So in that situation, if the unfortunate situation that our incidents of foreclosure were to go up, they're bound by this contract?
Yeah, and so for some context, so far this year through January 31st, we've only paid Kentuckiana $176,000, paid Dubai $33,000, and Wolverine $322,000. So our amount to not to exceed, I don't think we would come close to, but any amount the foreclosures went up and we required more services, we would just have to come
Oh,
back to you.
you're paying them for services rendered
Mhm.
with a cap? of-
Yes, yeah, so hopefully, I hope we
Gotcha,
would never
gotcha,
come close to
gotcha.
those amounts, but
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And authorization to renew a personal service contract with Crow LLP for auditing services. Tracy?
okay, thank you. KHC is charged with the responsibility of having a comprehensive audit performed on financial books and records of KHC at least annually in order to comply with certain bond indenture agreements, annual contribution contracts, and U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and other statutory requirements. In 2024, KHC issued a request for proposals for audit services. We've received 3 responses and selected Crow LLP to conduct the audit for fiscal '24. We have the option to renew the contract for 2 consecutive years following the original proposal, and this would be the first renewal. We do recommend approval by the board of a resolution authorizing KHC to renew the personal service contract with Crow LLP in an amount not to exceed $160,000 for fiscal year '26, which would be the audit of our fiscal year '25 books.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Matt, second by William. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That motion carries. That looks like that wraps you up.
Thank you.
Tracy, you wrapped up there. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have John Davidson, and he is going to present an authorization to renew a personal contract with Hannah Resource Group for employee services.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I'm John Davidson, Deputy Executive Director of Business Services, and I'm here today to present Agenda Item 17, Resolution Number 11. It is on page 141 of your packet. A resolution authorizing Kentucky Housing Corporation to renew a personal service contract with Hannah Resource Group, LLC, for human resource consulting for fiscal year 2026 in an amount not to exceed $21,600. Kentucky Housing Corporation has an ongoing need for services and market data beyond that of which internal staff can provide. Some of these services include providing market data for job descriptions for new and existing positions in the corporation, as well as consultation on our market-based job grading and compensation system, as well as succession planning consultation. This is a one-year contract with 2 one-year renewals. This is the second renewal of that one-year contract with Hannah Resource Group. So I'm seeking your approval today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Matt makes the motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second from Heather. Thank you. Any discussion?
I want an HR person to help me. Madam Chair.
Get John to introduce you to Hannah Resources.
Well, right next door.
Right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you all.
Okay. Next, we have the authorization to renew a personal service contract with Ballast Incorporated for investment advisory services, and that is Samuel Thorner.
Thank you. So this is a contract, this is asking for authorization to renew personal service contract with Ballast for investment advisor services. KHC is the sponsor of a 401A defined contribution pension plan. KHC's executive team serves as the trustees of the plan, and in that capacity will require investment advice from properly licensed investment advisors. In 2024, KHC issued an RFP for investment advisor services. We only received one response. We evaluated that response and selected Ballast to serve in that capacity. KHC has the option to renew the personal service contract for 2 additional consecutive years. This is the first renewal of that contract. KHC staff recommend approval by the Board of Directors of KHC of a resolution authorizing KHC to renew a personal service contract with Ballast in an amount not to exceed $16,000 for fiscal year 2026.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Matt makes the motion. Do we have a second? Kathy makes the second. Any discussion?
Just, it's a funny name
Yeah, for a company.
for the company, like Levy.
All right, then, let's take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Sam, you have another personal service contract for renewal with Walter, Gay, and Mack PLC for legal services.
Yeah, so this is for a personal service contract with Walter Gay and Mack for legal services. We're requesting authorization to renew this personal service contract for fiscal year 26. In 2023, after RFP process, 3 responses were received by KHC. We selected two law firms to represent us, and Walter Gay and Mack was one of those, to provide as-needed legal services for KHC's in-house legal department and 3rd KHC departments. We have the option to renew the contract for 2 consecutive years following the original proposal, and this will be the 2nd renewal of the contract. And just to clarify, part of the reason why we have 2 different law firms is to be able to quickly respond to legal matters in the event that there's a conflict of interest, which has occurred actually in the last year or so. So KHC is recommending approval by the Board of Directors of KHC, a resolution authorizing KHC to renew this personal service contract with Walter Gay Mack for an amount not to exceed $40,000 for legal services.
So moved.
Kathy makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by William. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And Sam, you have another personal service contract with McBrayer PLLC for the services.
Yes, so this was from the same RFP that was issued, and McBrayer was also selected to provide legal services as needed for KHC's legal department and other departments. We have the option to renew for 2 consecutive years, and this is the 2nd renewal. So both of these contracts will be RFP'd again next year and re-procured. KHC recommends approval by the Board of Directors of KHC of a resolution to renew the personal service contract with McBrayer for legal services for the legal department and other departments for fiscal year 26 in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Will makes the motion and Matt seconds. Do we have any discussion?
Is there a reason why the 2 caps are different?
The volume of usage, we use one more than the other. And it just depends on the matter. But the total expenditure is not approaching that. I think we're at like, what's the number? Do you have it there?
What we
For legal
spent so far
services.
this year?
Yeah. Hold on, I can find it in here.
So it's
Well, it's in my
basically just,
presentation.
McBrayer has a broader experience.
Yeah, and they tend to do more
In this area.
services for us.
It's under 15,000.
Under 15,000 total among both law firms through the first 2 quarters.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Wendy, Wendy, you are up. Authorization to renew a personal service contract with Capital Edge Consulting Incorporated.
So this too is a second renewal, so it would be the last time. It's also a contract that we've never spent a nickel for, but we need to have as a just in case, so I'll explain why. So our tenant assistance department has 2 main areas. One is Section 8 vouchers, which you just heard about. The other is what's called project-based contract administration, which is where we have a contract with HUD, and that we pay the rent on about 22,000 units across 109 counties for that. Those are units in privately owned properties, and we, inspect the units, inspect their files, and pay their rent every month, a portion of the rent. HUD for 12 plus years has been talking about rebidding this and letting it become competitively, bid out. There's been lawsuits, it's gotten stalled, a lot of false starts. The last iteration that got published called for competitive procurement instead of a notice of funds available. We, as KHC, go after notice of funds available from HUD or other agencies all the time. We compete all the time for that. Procurement is a very different, with the federal government, is a very different process, and we've never done it. So Capital Edge, it was going to help us with that if we ever need it. I don't actually foresee it happening with all of the turmoil and everything. I kind of hope they just don't make eye contact with the program and just leave it alone. But if it does go through procurement, we're going to need help, and so we want to renew this just to keep them on call.
So moved.
Okay, William makes the
Is that
motion.
okay?
Second.
Didn't mean to jump the
Kathy
gun.
makes the second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
that's that motion. All right, Sam, you have another resolution here. Resolution to consolidate the KHC Board of Directors committee structure.
Yeah, so KHC staff, we've reviewed the current KHC board committee structure and are recommending consolidating the Program and Policy Committee and the Communications and Planning Committees. So the current standing committee structure of the board was established in 1989 with the creation of the Executive Committee, the Program and Policy Committee, and the Finance Committee. In 2009, the Communications and Planning Committee was added to the standing committee structure. In recent years, the subject matter of both the Program and Policy Committee and the Communications and Planning Committee has become intertwined. Both committees regularly meet at the same time. In fact, I am not aware of any time that they've met separately. And both sets of committee members are presented with and provide discussion on the subject matter of both committees. The 2 committees are currently responsible for reviewing and providing recommendations on the qualified allocation plan, the annual allocation plan, and other policy, program, and communications matters that is assigned by the board of directors. So we, the staff, believe that a single committee covering all of the subject matter of both of these committees would increase efficiency, increase the likelihood of obtaining a quorum, and reduce the administrative burden and confusion of having 2 separate committees with overlapping subject matters and almost always meeting at the same time. So we are recommending to the board that for a resolution consolidating the Program and Policy Committee and the Communications and Planning Committee into a single standing committee that'll be named the Program, Policy, and Planning Committee.
I move, because I have been in those where one of the committees has a quorum and the other doesn't, but they're meeting together. It's crazy town.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy. Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, sorry, Sam, go ahead, jump in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the second to
I
Sam.
don't think you
Yeah.
All right, we have a second by Sam. Any discussion? Okay, all in
Is the
favor?
number changing?
I'm sorry?
Committee members?
So I guess we'll have a conversation with Mike, the chair, afterwards, after this is decided, to sort of figure out. I
Mike
think,
and Gail.
well, Gail's no longer on the board.
Oh,
So yeah, so there'll have to be a new chair for this as well, and we'll need to figure out. I think the goal would be to have approximately equal numbers on the committees, so that way it's a little bit easier to get a quorum.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And that is it for the motions. The next thing we have are informational items from the staff. Is that you, Winston?
That would be me to start, and it will be me just for the start, and then I'm going to turn it over to our rest of our deputies to give you more detail on it, although we're not going to bore you with all the details. I suppose there's always uncertainty about federal programs, but there's been more of that recently than before. And while there's been always uncertainty associated with the start of new presidency and the start of new Congress in session and all that sort of thing, it became exaggerated because of the the order that was issued by the Office of Management and Budget on January the 27th, directing all agencies, federal agencies, to pause all funding of all grants and other payments to their recipients. And since all of our federal programs are covered by those fundings, or arguably were covered by those fundings, I guess there was some doubt, it sent folks here in a bit of a panic, and people around the country, all over the United States, into a bit of a panic. Fortunately, 2 days later, because of the outcry from all over the country, the Office of Management and Budget revoked the pause, revoked the memo, and shortly thereafter, funding, and I didn't mention that during those 2 days, we were unable to draw down money as we normally draw down money from the federal government. Our funding was essentially cut off. Fortunately, within a few days after the pause was revoked, we were able to continue to draw down money, and our house is fairly well in order, with one exception, which I'll let Tracy identify and discuss. I think the pause, this order, the withdrawal of this order, has just caused a lot of insecurity among our staff and among the people that we fund, the 8 partners that we fund and provide program funding to all over the state of Kentucky. And I think it's brought greater attention to what is now before the Congress, which is how to deal with the budget. And you all read the newspapers as we read the newspapers, and you know the controversies that are going on there. But there seems to be a concern that the Congress will in fact cut government spending, and if they cut government spending, to what extent will housing be at risk, the current funding that we have, or requests for additional funding be at risk in that process? None of us know the answer to that. If you know the answer to that, we appreciate knowing, but none of us know the answer to that. And that's going to continue to cause continuing concerns because of the uncertainty of it. And we certainly can't resolve that today. But what we wanted to do was to give you all a brief discussion of the impact of the pause on us, the pending litigation, and the impact on our programs from going forward and looking in the rear mirror as well. So Tracy, you want to?
Sure.
Finance?
I guess we're on. So as you saw earlier, financially, as a corporation, we're fine. We're doing great. But definitely this was a cause for concern. As Winston mentioned, we were frozen out of the majority of our grant funds for about a day and a half or so. We've been able to draw down all of the money on behalf of our administrative expenses as well as our partners, with the exception of one grant program. It was 2 up till a couple days ago, and those are weatherization related programs. So the one program that's outstanding right now is this bipartisan legislation bill that got passed a few years ago. It's our largest weatherization program, and we have not received any money. So we submit draws. We have not received any money since the end of December. So currently outstanding are draws of about $260,000, with about $72,000 of that being KHC administrative funds. So our partners are as affected as much as we are affected by this. Going forward, we don't feel like there's going to be, the likelihood of a freeze isn't as much as we may have thought of a couple weeks ago, but we do have the pending federal budget continuing resolution due to expire March 14th. So we are going to try to get ahead as much as we can in terms of closing our books for February. The nature of grants is you have to incur the expense, so you get a full month of expense, sometimes two, before you actually draw the funds down. So we're already kind of behind the ball on that. So as an organization, we are going to close our February books as soon as we can, and encourage all our partners, as we did before when the funding was frozen, to submit as many draws as possible and get everything out the door in the event that there is some kind of government shutdown. We are very, very lucky that we are a large organization. We have many avenues of revenue, and we've weathered many storms around here. So I think it's our partners we're definitely concerned about. A lot of them are run on shoestring budgets, and to not be able to access even 1 month of draw is detrimental to their operations. So Wendy, if you want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing larger scale, but financially, we're doing everything we can to stay on top of it, and we'll report back if anything changes.
Could I ask a general question, Winston?
Yeah, sure.
So, I think this would be appropriate. So you've got an operating budget, and if you split it between programs that we control 100% versus those that are impacted federally, could you break our operating budget down percentage-wise?
Not off the top of my head, but it's probably half and half. I mean, our what we call kind of our main programs, our legacy programs is our mortgage operation, our servicing operation, even so much of Terry's area, our multifamily rental production. Those are our proprietary funds.
Right.
So that's KHC, that's our operations, that's our self-supporting financing. And then, yeah, we do have our programs. And they have their own budgets. We've got 90+ cost center budgets that, essentially should break even, or within the division break even. If we get to the point that we are running programs that we're no longer being reimbursed for, it will bleed over into the proprietary side. And obviously we'd like to prevent that. But we've got a big staff, and
right.
We've got a mission, so it's just day by day, trying to figure it out.
Thank you.
So we're talking about two things. One is, what if there's a shutdown? And the other is, what the heck will be in the budget?
We're actually really talking about three.
Yeah.
A freeze,
Oh, good.
there's the freeze, which has already happened and could happen again, right? There's a temporary restraining order,
Still
but
happening in some places.
yes, it's still happening for us too, for one program. There's the freeze, the shutdown, and then the coming budget. Yeah, yeah. So I'll just echo one of the things Tracy said, just to bring empathy around this. Our staff are terrified, especially those who operate under a federal grant program, but they're still doing their work, right? They know it's really important, they really care about it. They're looking to us for a lot of sometimes certitude or comfort, and all we can say is that we've weathered a lot, right? We got through the pandemic, we got through disasters, we're very creative and can come up with a lot of solutions, but we can't make the promises. Almost more gravely are our partners. Domestic violence shelters across the state rely 100% on federal dollars, 100%. I don't know what's gonna happen if their money gets cut, right? We've got all of our Section 8 properties. Our homeless shelters rely a lot on federal dollars, not entirely. But it's just, and they are really, really concerned because they live a lot closer to the edge, than we do as an organization. So we're really, we're trying to communicate with our partners as much and as clearly as possible. As soon as we know something, even if it's bad news, we're letting them know. Like the inability to enter into those project-based voucher contracts, we called as soon as we knew from HUD. We called them this week because we felt like we owed that to them. We also are really communicating they've got to get their draws in, and we're letting particularly our homeless partners draw 5, 6, 8 times per month. Kendrick's team manages that, and they can tell you their work volume has gone way up. But we don't want them caught out, with a lot of money owed to somebody, staff or a partner, what have you, or rent. So we are trying to really communicate with partners, and they appreciate that, even if it's hard news. We're also trying to do a lot of identifying how we can mitigate the harmful effects. We have some funds on hand at KHC. Federal programs allow you to earn what's called program income. It's when the money comes back to you, not because something failed, just because there was money left over. So we've got some program income, we've got some pandemic dollars still left and on hand until the end of September. And then we've got something that's from the last recession, you all, it's called TCAP. Like, we're trying to identify where, if a project gets stuck and can't get the money, or something happens, we might be able to step in short or long term with other dollars. We're also doing some problem solving on some other projects. I feel like we're doing what we ought to be doing, but I just want to convey that I think it's very uncertain, and the impacts that could roll across Kentucky are really concerning for us because we are such a rural state. KHC is the main administrator for HUD. KHC and DLG are the two main administrators for HUD dollars that come to Kentucky. Because while Louisville and Lexington and a couple of other cities might get their own dollars from HUD, the rest of the state relies on KHC and DLG to get access to those dollars to fund housing and projects and infrastructure. And so, if those get cut, or there's just no one at HUD to click the button that allows us to use the money, it just will affect a lot of our most rural parts of the state, and it'll be pretty widespread. We don't know anything for certain yet, right? It's all very up in the air. On the other side, and I won't get into detail because we don't know what will pass, at the state legislative session level, there's never been more housing activity. It is stunning. And this isn't a budget year. I told Sam that I promised I won't go on any trips or anything during the next session, because it is a budget year, and we think some of these will resurface. They're just kind of testing the waters. The one that we do think may pass that would affect us would be an increase to the State Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and it could potentially triple how much money is in there, which could help compensate for lost federal dollars. Not that we don't want just a compensation, we really need to build more housing for Kentucky, but that is at least something that is a little bit hopeful, to keep capacity going across our partners and our staff. Anyway, just wanted to kind of share with you what it might be like for our partners in the state.
I'll just say,
Yeah.
for a long time, we didn't seek further expansion of the trust fund, because once those little fingers are messing around, who knows what kinds of restrictions, even if you get more money, what kind of hatred will permeate through it.
I will say, I do feel very thankful that even before the legislation's been filed, in many cases, legislators have shared a draft with us to ask for our feedback, and then of course the finance cabinet always lets us offer formal feedback. So right now it looks like it'd be a good thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
And that is because you did that assessment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, being new, I have no idea what your communication routines were, but I applaud you and Winston and your team for being transparent with your team, because I learned a long time ago there's no such thing as an information void. That void gets filled with misinformation, and you're dealing with adults, and
Right.
and if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer, and when you do, you
Yeah.
do. But also that impacts you all as well. I mean, you all are having to bear that frustration and fear,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you all are echoing that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thank you.
not that we can do anything for you, but, misery loves company, I guess.
Well, it's nice to be recognized, just that everyone's going through it, and I agree. I think staff appreciate the honesty.
And let me say, I misspoke. I didn't mean to say hatred. I meant to say viewpoints will be permeated through there, so glad they won't be.
Thank you.
Sam, you want to add a little on the legal context?
Sure. So there's been a lot of litigation about, relating to the Trump executive actions, but there are two primary cases related to this temporary pause. that I just wanted to bring to your attention. And if you need more information, I'm happy to follow up with you. But there is a case in the DC district and a case in the Rhode Island district. The DC case, it was filed by a group of nonprofit organizations and small businesses directly challenging the OMB memo. Even though the OMB memo was rescinded, the judge issued a temporary restraining order and ruled that the case can proceed because the White House had indicated that the funding freeze would continue. And the last update, as of 2 days ago, the court has granted a motion for a preliminary injunction which prevents the administration from implementing, giving effect to, or reinstating under a different name the blanket freeze on disbursement of federal funds. So there is, at this time, a preliminary injunction in place to prevent the administration from pausing the funding. I suspect that this won't be resolved until we hear from the Supreme Court. It's probably going to go all the way up. So TBD on that. In the Rhode Island case, it's a very similar situation. It was filed by states rather than nonprofit organizations, and the states moved to enforce the restraining order in that case, and the judge granted the motion indicating that there was evidence that the administration had continued to freeze the funds. So that's the status of the litigation. If you want more updates, I'm happy to provide them. We've been following it just to make sure that we know what the legal landscape is and what to expect. On the legislation side of things, the U.S. is currently operating under a continuing resolution that's set to expire on March 14th, I believe. And so, so we've got that continuing resolution that could expire without any sort of extension, which would require action from Congress and the President to sign off on it. But both the House and the Senate have taken steps to move forward toward the creation of a new federal budget. The Senate passed a skinny resolution. They're looking at a 2-bill version. The House passed a resolution 2 days ago to start the budget process and include everything in a single bill. So there's a little bit of conflict between the Senate approach and the House approach. I think that they're sort of waiting to see which will be the most viable. The House version of this resolution calls for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts and $2 trillion in spending cuts over the next 10 years. And like we said, the exact programs and spending cuts have yet to be determined, but that's sort of the framework that we're operating under. So, if you have any questions about legislation, litigation, I'm happy to have those conversations with you.
John, do you have anything to add from Business Services?
Despite all of the federal changes, the employees of Kentucky Housing Corporation are staying the course, coming to work, working hard to fulfill our mission, which is to provide safe, decent, affordable housing for citizens of the Commonwealth. As mentioned before, we've weathered a lot of storms. I've been here almost 20 years, gotten through a lot of things, housing, recessions, COVID, all kinds of things. And I echo some of the comments. We've been as transparent as we can, and with our staff, and we have said, we don't know what the future holds. That has gone, I think that's been received well. We have not laid any employees off. We are weathering this storm based on the financial standing that we have, and we continue to invest in our staff and our operations until such a time as we can. And so I'm going to leave us with just a glimmer of hope that transparency, but also we will weather this and continue to provide safe, decent, affordable housing.
Any questions for Wendy, Sam, Tracy, John? Before I relinquish the floor, let me just say thank you all for coming today. We were a little scared we might not have a quorum, and we really appreciate every one of you being here so that we actually have one more than a quorum. So we're really in great shape. But thank you. Thanks Secretary Johnson for chairing. Chair Mike Denham was very disappointed that he wasn't going to be able to be here today, but he had back surgery today. And it had been scheduled for several months down the road, and the doctor said it needed to get done. And they were able to advance him into a slot to have the surgery done today. And so he sends his best and he sends his regards, and all of you think good thoughts about Mike, and hopefully we'll have Mike back in time for the next meeting of the board or of the executive committee if that becomes necessary due to circumstances. And I'd like to welcome formally Sam and Bill to the board, and we look forward to working with you and all the rest of you in the coming year.
Okay. Well, with that, I will ask if there's any items from the board or staff that are not on the agenda. Okay. Then I will take a motion for adjournment then. Motion from Matt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Will. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Yes, we do.
Appreciate it.